I'm Kat Rambo, your medicine woman, and you have voted. You voted for the mind-body connection myth. Let's talk about that. It's very exciting. So as always, if you would like to, there's some technical issues. Some recent ceremonial work has some crap piled up around. Look, a ceremony fan, turkey fan, of course. If you would like to participate in the voting, then I would love to have you participate in the voting. In the description, you'll see a link to my Facebook group, which is where the poll goes every week on Sunday, so we can join together here on Tuesdays. If you do not like Facebook, or you don't participate there, then let me know. Do you know of a better way? Maybe just leave me a comment. I love to circle back around to the comments and with a topic that you're interested in, and I would love to hear that and share with you what it is that is wanted by you. I already know what I know. I would love to share with you something that I've learned. So our topic today is the mind-body connection myth. And why is it a myth? We do know that the mind and body are connected, right? So how is that a myth? So I heard something some time ago that really struck me. And it said that the mind-body connection is a myth because it implies the interconnectedness of two distinct systems, that the mind and body are separate. And this is simply untrue. So it perpetuates a false idea of distinction between these two systems when the truth is they exist entirely conjoined, right? They may contain different functions, but they are a single system. So what does that mean for us and how do we leverage this information? First of all, that whole concept changed my perspective because I was thinking of these systems as independent and interrelated. This is very allopathic. So what does that mean? So allopathic is the word we use to describe modern Western medicine, where we treat symptoms, we look at pieces of the pie, right? The whole thing will address a single organ or a single imbalance. But what makes holistic medicine so interesting is that and so effective in so many ways. Now, I'm not anti-pharma, I'm not anti-allopathic medicine. Totally has its place, and it is a miracle of modern science. Absolutely. I mean, if your arm is falling off, no amount of herb is going to help you, right? So, are your lips the same color as your other lip? Wow. So, the joy of holistic medicine is to address the entire system as a whole, right? So the entire system is not a collection of independent pieces. It is one functioning entity. So to address one aspect it's going to affect all the rest of the aspects anyway. And how does that create more harmony? So how do we rediscover balance and harmony? So by acknowledging that these systems are not distinct, that they're actually singular, right? And they may have different expressions, manifestations, or aspects that we can address independently, which is interesting, then that makes it helpful to triage issues, but it doesn't really bring us back to whole balance. So this is my fixation on integration. Whether you work with me in any of those categories, you're always going to work with me with the whole medicine wheel, right? Mind, body, emotion, and spirit, all four quadrants, all four aspects of self. So there's nothing that I do that doesn't incorporate all four aspects. So this idea of the mind-body union, right? The mind-body single entity, in my Reiki mastership class, my teacher training, the master that I was learning from, love her, she called it the body mind, right? A singular entity with its own innate wisdom, which is beautiful. Now, when we look at that let's look at that from all four aspects, right? Does that mean, and what do we do with that information? Mind, body, emotion, and spirit, right? So from the perspective of mind, let's talk about integration, right? If we're talking about the body and the mind being a single system, mind aspect needs to acknowledge and recognize that your thoughts are not just in your head. I mean, we put equipment outside of our dome to figure out what's happening inside of our head with the EEG machines and other type of technology. So we know that our thoughts are not relegated to the domain of the internal space, right? They exist outside of us. And depending on your perspectives, that may mean they exist outside of us. Your entire reality is a projection of thinking pattern. That may mean that your quality of life is a function of a reticular activating system where you're seeking patterns in your life, right? That may mean that your perspective is determining your reality, right? We can also talk about the placebo effect. And this is my favorite because we like to think of this as a failure that originates in the overreach of the mind, right? Hello, Brian. So we consider the placebo effect a problem in scientific research because it's out of the control of the direct physiology. The idea being, of course, that you give one subject a remedy and the other subject a false empty remedy, and yet the remedy still works anyway for some reason because the mind assumes it does, right? So there's so much power there. So why are we thinking about this as a failure or a problem, a hurdle to overcome in scientific research, a bias that we need to understand in order to have good science, when actually we're talking about a superpower here? Your mind can actually heal your body in extraordinary ways. I even saw a study about veterans and knee surgeries, and they did a control with no no cutting on the knee. They did one group with a cutting on the knee with actually a surgery, and they did another group with a cutting off the knee but no surgery, just the cutting and the suturing, and then that's it. And the cutting with the suturing had remarkably effective results, especially in relationship with the actual surgical procedure and the not no procedure at all. It's really quite extraordinary what the mind is capable of, right? I love it. And this is why I love tools like NLP and hypnosis and deep transcendental work, the kind that really changes your mind in a profound beliefs and identity level type of way. So when you really accept that power, isn't that amazing? Then we can acknowledge okay, conscientiously, I can understand the body and mind are a single body mind situation, and I can know that, and I can understand that I can apply my mentality to my physical form and take some control back, in my health, in my wellness, in my function, in my strength, in my muscle tone, in my skill set, right? In my capacity, in my clumsiness, in all of it. There's so much power the mind has, and I won't go too nuts, but there's a lot of science that backs this up for a lot of ways, right? Athletes who practice in their head and yet perform better and actually develop muscle tone where they shouldn't because they weren't really in training, but in their mind they were. Mind cannot distinguish the difference between a powerful visualization and a true reality, right? The external and the internal reality. This is why visualization techniques work so well. Your mind doesn't know the difference, right? So mind, let's talk about emotion, right? So emotion, our second quadrant of 4, right? Mind, body, emotion, spirit. We're starting with mind. Let's do emotion. So emotion is a powerful driver of the thought process, right? So if the thought process is determining the emotion, I have a thought that creates fear, right? Or you're having a fear that creates a thought that reflects the fear. Right? It works both ways. So when we realize that we actually have more authority over our emotions than we realize, also, our thinking is generating a set of emotions. So, for example, now obviously there are outliers in this case. So this isn't a blanket statement. There are legitimate, concerns in physicality in other places. But when we're talking about the majority of my clients that come in with even severe cases of depression and anxiety, these are emotional qualities and yet completely driven by the mental landscape. So we can make changes in the mental landscape and completely beneficially affect the emotion. We also know that emotion causes all types of physical disorders, right? There's ancient practices in traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda that talk about where emotions and certain qualities are stored in the body. And then we have the modern science that's talking about magnetic resonance medicine and energetic resonance frequency medicine. It's fascinating. It's the stuff of the future, and it's here now, right? So I see it again and again in my practice from that holistic, shamanic perspective of working on all these aspects together, of stepping into that possibly a little bit mysterious vantage point of saying, okay, well, and I see it a lot in my herbalism practice. Someone comes in and they tell me that they're having skin issues, and I tell them, actually, you're having anger issues, you need a liver tonic. Like, what? How does that relate to anything, right? But if anger is primarily stored in the liver and the skin is a reaction to the condition of the liver, then we're having anger breakouts, right? And I'm sure we've all had hormonal breakouts. Every kid knows that acne comes around, even if you don't suffer from it at certain times of life, right? For a reason. We all know that we can get stress rashes. Isn't that interesting? This is an emotional condition generated by a thinking pattern. We don't get stressed of emotion naturally, the emotion of stress, which is a physiological response. Cortisol and all the other hormones start happening, inflammation starts happening, right? Weight gain starts happening, all of these things happening, brain function declines. And parasympathetic nervous system activation is like on, so, or wants to be on, right? That's what we need. So we have another situation where we are, even in the modern perspective and modern science, able to see that there's a direct correlation between the thinking pattern, the emotional reaction, and then the physical body's response. Right? That said about emotion, because emotion is also related to the thought process and it is highly related to the body process, this is a great place to interrupt both, right? To interrupt what's happening in the body and what's happening in the mind at the same time, is a set of emotions stored in your body causing tissue damage or irritation, and at the same time creating a belief structure that's causing a mental construct, right? So how do we interrupt that process, right? That's an important consideration. So what do we do in each of these categories? In the mind section, it's worth remembering your power, right? Telling yourself something that you want to believe is true, and remembering you have access, right? You have access to your physicality, your physical world, and your body in a way that we've been told is only the domain of doctors. But the truth is, we have tremendous power. And doctors that dislike it, it's not that a doctor would dislike it, it's that research dislikes it because it creates unclear scientific results. Now, in the mind and the emotions section, this is also related. How can we modulate our emotions, or how can we understand that our emotions are part of our physical well-being and also part of our thinking process, and how these systems all work together, and we need to interrupt somewhere on this vicious cycle that happens, right? In order to help ourselves heal and grow and feel better and not continue to damage ourselves with overthinking, stressful emotions, anger, resentment, forgiveness is really powerful, right? I think we did another live about that. Was it last week's live? So find it somewhere. There's a really old video that's like so not cute. It's so old. It's so awkward. But I left it anyway because you know what? It's authentic. I did my best at the time. I made a whole video about the power of forgiveness, right? So forgiveness actually causes physiological changes in the way your brain is functioning and also in the way your body functions. So we can take control of our health simply through acts of real forgiveness. Is that available? If you want to learn more about that, check it out on the channel. Um, I love that there's so much science now backing up the usefulness of a forgiveness practice. And the last live was about a practice of forgiveness, not just about like a singular act in response to an infringement. The body, mind, no, mind, emotion. Let's do body, right? That's body, mind, body connection. Let's talk about that part. So the body provides feedback, right? And this is why people who are in pain a lot, like deal with chronic pain, also deal with like anger, right? And it's not just that someone who is experiencing chronic pain gets pissed about it, because it's extremely frustrating way to live. Um, and also, the mechanism of pain is related to anger as a defense mechanism for a wounded being, right? So someone in pain is wounded, right? And whether or not chronic pain is um, an acute injury, it is, or a response to acute injury, it is a response to injury. So uh, the anger system activates in order to protect the wounded animal, right? So this is how when you see like a wounded dog on the street and they say like, oh, don't touch the dog with the hurt leg because he might try to kill you. Like he might try to bite you because he's hurting, right? Anger is a defense mechanism during pain. So the experience of pain. So this is just one example. So the body is sending feedback to the mental and emotional system. And of course, someone who lives with pain and anger, if you've known anyone like this, they don't live in like ease and compassion and like a thinking pattern related to like goodwill. Like they may try and they may do their best, but it's a lot harder to focus the thinking pattern when there's something going on in the body. So the emotion is a good place to intercept that. And one of my favorite ways to actually put that into action is one, doing something to help yourself, especially when you don't want to, right? But also to look at our fourth quadrant, which is spirit, right? So spirit doesn't have to mean anything you don't want it to mean. Some of our clients come in atheist, that's fine too. Um, Spirit just means anything bigger than yourself, which connects us all. That's all it means to me in my practice. So that can be God, it can be source, it can be chi, it can be the Tao, it can be the force, it can be the quantum field, it can be, the energetic matrix of the universe on a quantum level, like whatever it is you want it to be, it doesn't matter, right? What matters is that you recognize there's something bigger than all of us that connects us all, right? And that could be the atomic structure of this present dimension, right? Whatever it is that feels good to you. So that aside, when we address this aspect of ourselves, this is the part where we can find questions, confusion, answers, and hope. Because the aspect of faith is about choosing a set of beliefs, whether or not they may or may not be true, right? So, like, for example, the Abrahamic God, right, is more of a personified figure, right? It has qualities that we would ascribe to personified character, like, it gets angry, or he gives forgiveness, or like is wrathful. So there are these emotional qualities that are ascribed to this deity, and probably Earth's most prevalent god is the Abrahamic God. Um, Abrahamic referring to the three big religions, but also the myriad. Oh, hello! I like your little fairies. The myriad iterations in between. So, in this case, an appeal to an entity which is invested in your well-being or in your life or decision making is a great place to feel like you have some sense of control, because you can ask for help, that there's something there to help you, right? And this can cause a relaxation of the nervous system, which reduces the cortisol levels, which reduces the repetitive aggressive thinking, which calms down the pain response. You see how it all kind of flows and connects together? For those more interested in a more perhaps scientific faith, right? Which sounds a little silly to say. It's not a paradox, though. I do love paradox, but it's not a paradox. If you haven't seen an atom yourself, you believed in it because you read it in a book, right? So my favorite religion is science, actually. I love science as a religion. So even in this case, if you're interested in more logical persuasion of faith, and the principle being that there is a unifying force, there is an activator of life of some form, whether it's biological, or whether it is related to the recent studies in frequency medicine, whether it's simply the all that we all are, then that's enough. Then this too can provide some source of inspiration that can help attract the thought, right? It gives us something to focus on. That may be a place that is mysterious, so it doesn't require a sensical point A to point B experience, like I take this pill and then I have less inflammation. But when you're talking about engaging in a metaphysical or spiritual practice, then the idea is that you must choose its usefulness. You must choose that it has an effect, right? That's called faith, right? The decision to believe in something that may or may not be true. So and what's beautiful is that when someone is very invested in their faith, it stops being faith, it starts becoming truth. And this is powerful magic. It's powerful. That's when we get back around to the beginning and we can talk about mind, because our first quadrant, because it's the mind that's causing influence on the body, right? So I believe that this is part of the source of at least some of the miraculous healings in the world, is the absolute knowledge that it is available, right? So this gives us something which is good for the mind system, maybe good independently for the body system, good for the emotion system. So each of these different quadrants, they all work together. And it's not that they even go in a circle, they cross pollinate like a web, like a spider web or a dream catcher, right? And with our words, we weave our web of reality. So ask yourself, what are you telling yourself? Because the words you tell yourself are instructions to your body and to your mind. And that is what will determine your physical and emotional and mental and quality of life reality. It is easy to say, well, this happened to me. It is not related to my thinking. But if it was unavailable in your construct of reality, it simply would not occur. So there is something of value in it for you. Find the value in it. And when you understand the value in it, then the need of it will disappear. I myself have been present in my life for my own miraculous healings, and I did not consider them a function of faith at all until I realized that, of course, they were, because I believed it was available. So I worked towards it. I worked towards it mind, body, emotion, and spirit. I did the things, I thought the things, I felt the things, I made decisions in each of these categories that really contributed to my general whole wellness. And I can tell when I'm not feeling so hot and I need to interrupt the process somehow. And my favorite way to leverage this wisdom is to amplify it by leveraging all four quadrants. For example, personal story. Today I went to acupuncture because I've been getting migraines, and I said to myself, boy, I would just love to go to acupuncture. I'm in a new town, don't really know what's around here. I should probably look it up online, but then I didn't do that because I had something else to do, like visas and stuff. So I was walking around town, and surely wouldn't you know, in the 2.5 blocks between my point A and point B, I walked in front of an acupuncturist, a traditional master acupuncturist from Korea. It was really phenomenal, and talked to me specifically about migraine management in ways that I hadn't considered before, which is my favorite type of thing, is to learn something I never thought of before. And I actually start feeling a lot better right away. And I said, okay, this is wonderful. So my physical help is here. My nervous system has received some benefit, interruption of signal, which is going to help me. How can I amplify that with my entire wheel? And this is how we can apply this wisdom. This is how we turn it into knowledge and take knowledge and turn it into wisdom. So I love to leverage all four aspects. I'm super integration into integration. So if I know that my physical body has received some assistance, I'm going to put my faith in the curative power of what I have experienced. Not only am I going to be with it in body, I will choose it in spirit and say, I must have been led there because I thought of it and there I was. And it's not like that small town really has like traditionally trained Korean acupuncturists as like part of their general well-being. It's fast food and cheap clothes and like small city stuff, really small city. I was very surprised to find an acupuncturist, especially of this caliber there. So I knew it must have just been perfect. Whether it was there because I imagined it might be, or maybe I saw it because I was walking past it and I had been thinking about it. It was a very small door. I wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't been considering it, probably. But anyway, I told myself, this must be orchestrated by something bigger than my conscious awareness. Maybe my subconscious mind has chosen this experience for me, knowing that I think it will help me. So let me believe that it will help me so much that I will just be so sure of it that also it will cause me to feel, let's go up to emotion, feel really excited. It'll cause me to feel really grateful, really excited. Gratitude is also powerful magic. There's a lot of science there about that. So if I'm feeling grateful, excited, and relieved, I feel like I've got some help. Isn't that nice? And relieved because I am feeling a little bit better. I think that like weird irritation on the left side of my eye is like going away. And if I think it is, then I must choose it. And then I get excited and relieved and like joyful and grateful about it. And then let's go back to mind. And that's where also the decision-making function is, let me choose. Let me choose that it's working and do something about it. Let me focus on that gratitude. Let me focus on the feeling of relief. Let me focus on the faith and focus on the knowing that it came to me because it's right for me and it's meant for me. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. That's why it's called faith, is just pick it because it feels good and it works, right? And it works. Why? Who cares? The mechanism, right? Then, I do care. I actually love mechanism process. And so now I've got all of these quadrants going on, and then I come back around to body and say, what can I do with my body to like amplify this? And remember, the aspect of body isn't just the physical form of your temple within which you reside. It is also the function of the material world in action. So, what can I do? Okay, well, I know what helps me is to keep socks on and, not get too high, drink a little green tea, that'll help me and stay in a dark place, right? And like be calm and quiet. Don't suddenly go watch a movie or go partying, that won't help me. So it's a beautiful way to like circle all around and say, well, now I'm making physical choices to amplify the result of this experience. Doesn't that feel good? Isn't that exciting? I'm going to be grateful to myself for that too. Isn't that fun? So all of these systems can amplify itself, and you create this vortex, fervor of healing for yourself that doesn't have to be complicated, doesn't have to be deep. It can simply be an observation of all of your integrated aspects and the acknowledgement of the interconnectedness, nay, not the interconnectedness of your systems, but of the singularity, which we have separated into distinct systems merely for the purpose of understanding, but not because it is in truth this way. Does that make sense? If you like that, let me know. Say, yeah, Kat, you make sense. Or Kat, no, you make no sense to me. I would love to hear what you have to say. Is there a way in which you have leveraged some aspect of this mind-body singularity in order to help yourself in some way? Or have you noticed the ill effect of misunderstanding, or maybe not quite anticipating, or maybe you did anticipate what would happen? I get stressed out and then I always get headaches. Oh man, just the thought of that guy makes my stomach turn over. It makes me sick. Well, of course it does. The thought makes you feel sick. How is that? And when I get stressed, I like to eat. Mind, body, again. It's all very interrelated. It's a single system. In fact, something like a third of your neurons are in your stomach. Don't quote me on that, but your gut contains a lot of neurological material. And your entire nervous system is your brain. This is the central processing unit of a system that expands and extends through your entire corpus. So it's worth remembering that your brain isn't just up here. It's all in here. It's all of it. And it contains so much information. Every neuron knows what every other neuron knows. Everybody knows everything. So how are you leveraging that superpower of yours in a way that can help you feel better and better every day? Remember, if you backslide, don't beat yourself up. That's part of the journey. It's choosing again. That's the mind part of the body-mind system. Is choice. Yeah? We always have choice. We always have choice. Even when we feel like we don't. Remember, we cannot always choose our external environment, but we absolutely can choose our internal environment. That is our sovereignty. That is our kingdom, our temple. And although it feels like the external environment shapes the internal space, there is also at some point the recognition that you can make a conscious decision about how you're going to react and respond to the world around you in such a way that the world around you then begins to change as an extension of the thought that you're putting into your body, and the material world being an extension of your body. It's quite incredible the magic that can come from here. Magic simply being the unexplainable, right? And yet here we are explaining it. So perhaps not so much unexplainable after all. Leave me a comment and let me know, is this useful, interesting, or fun for you, or weird or awkward? How does it feel to think about the mind-body connection as a myth and the body-mind as a singular source of wisdom, knowing, inspiration, stored baggage, and also possibilities? What do you have waiting in there for you, and how are you going to access it next? I hope the breaking it down into the 4 quadrants helps in the same way that breaking it down into here's a body and here's a mind. It's not actually true. It's a singular system. We're separating them to look at their different aspects. In the same way that we break apart the medicine wheel into these 4 quadrants, you are not a single quadrant. There's nothing you can do to one that is not going to affect the other. You are the single hoop. If you like these principles, hop into some other of my social media. There's a community forming in a it's been there for a while in a Facebook group. There's what do you like? Do you like this type of forum, or do you like WhatsApp chats, or I love community. I would love to enjoy community. So leave me a comment and let me know, what kind of community do you like? Where have you experienced really beneficial community? There's a Facebook Messenger group, but maybe we'll do WhatsApp too. How do you think? Sending lots of love. We are way over time on this session, but I really do love this subject. So thank you for voting. Thank you for this inspiration. Thank you for the opportunity to share. And I'm very excited that I got to share such a real and present example from my life today, just a few hours ago. Sending lots of love always, 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 and lots of goodwill, many blessings.